Welcome to the Smart Connector podcast. As ever, I have an amazing guest for you today, Guillermo Salazar. Welcome, Guillermo.
Hi, Jane. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, so you're welcome. So Guillermo is a family business advisor, and he helps his clients navigate the related challenges of governance and succession in family businesses. And he's got a book which is called A Road to Triumph in Family Business, which we'll be talking about later. Do you want to just show everybody that book, Guillermo?
It's right here.
Yep, and that's a fascinating read for anybody that is interested in this topic of how to build intergenerational wealth through business. So it's really, really great to have you here, Guillermo. And let's get straight into it. So, family business is very, very popular, isn't it? Because a lot of people care about their families. They want to pass down wealth through the generations, and business is a vehicle for doing so, right?
Yes, it's very common to be related with a family business.
Mm,
And I'm pretty sure that most of your audience doesn't know that they are related with the family business somehow. It's the most common form of organization in the for a private owner to create a business that wants to transfer to the next generation. So that's the
mm,
concept of family business.
yes. Well, of course, because we all love our families, don't we? There aren't many people in the world that don't want to create a legacy for their loved ones, right? And isn't that what it's all about?
Exactly. So I would say that any kind of entrepreneurship that you can see has the seed inside of a family business because
Yes,
sooner or later you will be willing to transfer that to your loved ones somehow.
yes. But it doesn't always work out that way, does it, Guillermo?
Yeah. There is a lot of obstacles that you can find in the road. There is a lot of challenges that you are going to face if you want to do that transfer in a successful way.
Yes.
So yes, that's why I come in the in the history to help someone who is willing to do that transition in a way that you can satisfy the needs of anyone involved in that transition process.
Yes, yes. And you help family businesses all over the world. We were just talking about that beforehand. So you're based in Texas. You have a lot of clients in the US. You have a lot of clients in South America, Central America, South America, and so on. But you do have clients everywhere because the same issues arise, don't they?
Yes, yes.
Wherever you are in the world.
Yeah, we have family business in practically every corner of the world. Although most of the cultural issues can differ from one concept of family from one country to another. It,
Mm,
it's interesting to think about, for example, every time that we work with a family business, we try to help them to define what's the first interest of the system. Is it
mm.
the business or is it the family? That
Aha.
means, is the family working for the business or the business was created to help the family? So you
Mm.
can see, for example, in Asian cultures, that the business was made to help the family, which is a very different culture that you find here in the US, for example, or Western Europe.
Yes.
When we work in a family business, we think business first and then the family. So in order to understand what's the way that the system works in different part of the world, you have to understand the culture of the country you're working with, and that makes a huge difference. For example, when you want to work with a family in Africa,
Mhm.
southern Sahara Africa, and you try to help them to the next generation to raise the voice in order um, to create an opinion in a subject, it is very hard for them to go against the voice of the senior generation. It's a
Ah,
cultural thing
mm.
that you have to respect, that the next generation is working very hard nowadays to start to raise their voice, which is something that you don't think about when you work in South America or in the US. I mean, here everybody can say anything, and it's okay. But in some countries, you have to be aware of that kind of issues. Um,
Very
yes, it's very different when you think about it.
it's very interesting. And what about between, North and South America? I'm sure that you must see a difference there as well.
There is also differences, but not the differences are not focused on the cultural things. There
Mhm.
are there are huge difference in the market size of the
Mm.
business. So when we talk about family business, we're talking about the concept of a transmission of the ownership from one generation to the next one.
Mm.
And we are talking about practically every private ownership business.
Yep.
And you have the huge business like Walmart, like Volkswagen, like Nike. I mean, those are family businesses in
Yeah.
concept. But you also have the business that you can find just turning the corner around your house.
Mhm.
Those kind of business are also family business. But when you compare the business size of the North American market and the South American market, you will see there is a huge difference. What
Mm.
we call here in the US a small business, it could be a medium-sized business for example, Colombian or Costa Rica business.
Mm.
So that makes a difference because when you have that size of market, you also have the possibility of selling your business in a more proper way. There's a second-hand market here in the US that if you don't have a solution for transmitting your ownership to the next generation, you can sell your business, and that's okay. But then back in the South American countries, we see that there is no a second-hand market.
Uh-huh.
In fact, the stock market is a very small one.
Uh-huh.
So the best option for your value, for the value of your ownership, is to keep on going with the business because there's no one who's going to buy it. I mean, it's very hard for someone that has a business that has the right price for the value that they have built. So the best option is to keep on going with the business, and that makes you a family business because you don't have any option if you want to keep the value. So those are different challenges because of the size of the market.
Mm. That is so interesting. It's fascinating, isn't it? People are fascinating, cultures are fascinating, different approaches are fascinating. I just love this conversation. It's great.
Thanks.
So
But by the end of the day, if you allow me, um, it's all about trying to align the different interest in only one interest, the common interest of the family business. I mean, you can do the same in Africa and Asia and in South America and Western Europe, Eastern Europe. It's all about, are we willing to keep on going together as a family with this business, or can we consider splitting our family business somehow? By the end of the day, that's a huge question that they have to do.
well, yes, and just like any business, for a business to succeed, the key individuals have to be aligned, right? And is that more of a challenge, do you think, for family businesses because you're dealing with different personalities? People don't necessarily choose their relatives, do they?
Yeah, that's the situation. I mean, and basically because we are talking about families, we are talking
Mm.
about long-term relationship,
Yes.
which is different. If you, for example, have a board of professional individuals that are hired for creating a new product or penetrate a new market, they
Mm.
will be, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years working together. And if you're looking for an alignment, you can see, okay, they will be doing their own sacrifices to keep on going together as a team for this 4, 3, 5 years, and that's it. And maybe they can consider going somewhere else. But in a family business, if the owners are related as a family, you have a very long term relationship. So
Yes.
considering that we are going to work together for the rest of your life, for example, which is a long term,
Yes.
You have to focus on aligning your interest with a very sincere uh, methodology to make
Mm.
that relationship possible.
And it's not just the interests, it's also the characters and the personalities are going to be very different in, I would say, are in all families, right? So, is it a challenge to find the right role for certain family members sometimes?
Yes, because as you mentioned, and I will say that most of the keys of a successful family business are related with this tolerance and this understanding of that every individual has his or her own interest on the business, and somehow you have to make in some point a personal sacrifice if you want to keep in this business. So once you do that sacrifice and you share your dream with the rest of the members of the family, then you can start aligning those goals, and that implies that making sacrifice will you will need some um, not only tolerance but also generosity.
Yes.
You will need some special skills on communication.
Mm.
You will need some special skills on how to deal with different personalities. So
Yeah.
uh, that makes you a better person working in a family business.
Yes, I'm sure, because a lot of families squabble, don't they? And people are selfish at times, and I guess it takes, for any long-term relationship to be successful, it does require that at times you put your own needs to one side and you focus on others, right? So I suppose what you're saying is that that emotional generosity and that really, as you said, focus on purpose has to be present in order for it to succeed.
Yes, because by the end of the day, this is all working with teams, working with different individuals,
Mm,
and that's the real challenge.
yes.
How do we create from a complex system a simple solution? And
Mm,
when I talk about complex system, I'm not talking about complicated. I'm talking about the complex of different elements that are interacting between them.
yeah.
Aligning that in a simple solution from a common goal, that's the real challenge.
Yeah, definitely. So, Guillermo, we were talking beforehand as well about your own experience. So, you came from a family business background, but it didn't work out that well for you, did it? So, tell us about your story and why you're so passionate about this topic of family business.
Well, it was about 25 years ago that I was working with my family, with the business of my family. Originally from Venezuela, and I'm an architect. And the business of my family was construction.
Yeah.
And about years ago, things were different, very different in Venezuela. And we have a very good business.
Mm,
But at some point, and I'm second generation, at some point, we couldn't align our personal agendas. Um, there were, I don't want to point no one in my family, but there were valid points of view, different points of view, and for personal interest, we couldn't agree in one common goal. So that was the origin of the split of the business. And I learned from that if people is willing to get the best value of the business, the best way to do it is working together.
yep.
So I learned it the hard way. And now I see that if we could work somehow in exploring our differences and trying to focus on an alignment, that should work in that moment. And that's what I'm doing now with the families I work with. I try to
Yes.
help them to define, first of all, if they really want to work together. I insist in that question because most of the families that contact me on the first interview, I always end the first interview asking them, do you want to keep on going together? Because you always have the option. I mean, you are, for being a family business, you are not condemned to be together. You have the option to split your business or your activities. Yeah. Please think about it, because it's hard to work together.
Yes.
But I think it's harder to work alone. So you have to you think about it. So if the answer is sincere and they say yes, we want to go with you and help us to work together. Okay, let's work on, first of all, on try to find that alignment that you will need.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting because I mean, I've worked in a lot of businesses, and some of them have been family businesses, one or two of them. A lot of them haven't. And I think what happens is when you get different people in any kind of business with a different agenda, they all have families behind them. And what that means is that can introduce a more complex agenda than if you are a family who is working together for the common good of the family and the business.
Yes.
So I think it's very, very interesting what you say, because some of the things that you're talking about, they are relevant to all businesses, but I can also see why a family business could, when it's run the right way, can be successful and can create that intergenerational wealth, because it's a stronger business if you have that element right of that purpose and that vision, which is
Yes.
obviously what you've been talking about.
And that's most of the family business. I think that they should think about, because trying to align and finding a common goal, what we call it the shared dream,
Mm.
where
Uh-huh.
all of you want to be in the next 10 years. How do you dream about this family will be? How is the build the business? How will be the business? How will be the ownership? And in how does it align with your own personal project of life?
Yep.
Can you fit in that project? And usually when you explore and when you start to talk about it, you find a way. But
Yes.
sometimes we don't have time for that, uh, for organize a proper conversation, a meeting to explore that, to methodologically find a way to do the right question and find the answer. So, um, I mean, we individuals are very creative once you are pushed to, and there's a way to find always a solution.
Yeah. So, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is when outsiders, let's just say, come into family businesses, does that create any specific challenges that you have seen?
What when you say outsiders, what
I
kind
mean,
of?
people who are not part of the family, because obviously any family business, they will run out of family members at some point,
Yeah.
won't they? And they will want to bring other people into the business. Perhaps they're people that have specific skills that nobody in the family has. Um, do you think it is harder for somebody who is not part of a family business to come into a family business as opposed to a non-family business? Or do you think that there are things that family businesses can do in order to really make that person or those people coming in feel like part of the family in a way?
Yes, yes. That's an excellent question. I always suggest the families to be prepared to receive a new member that is not part of the family. So because we're talking about calling someone to join the board, for example,
Yeah,
which is something very important.
yeah.
But um, we have to be prepared to um, explain the other person how we are, what do we do, why do we do what did we are willing to do, and trying to find a match between our values as a family and the new coming member as a
Mm,
as a person who wants to be a perfect match for this family. But prior of that, we have to prepare and be very professional, because the other person is here basically because they have a professional goal, and they want to interact in a professional way. So what does it mean to be professional? Basically, it's to make decisions in an orderly way,
Mhm.
and we need to create a right board that can create the conditions to receive someone that will start to interact in that way. So that's the main goal for a family business, that is willing to create the room for someone who's coming from the outside. But you have to choose who is going to come. Not, I mean, from my experience, it's not the same to be a board member of a big incorporation, that they have all the rules of the professionalizations as a part of the culture, than a family business that is starting to work in a professional way.
Mhm.
So those
Mhm.
are the differences.
Yeah. And I guess the thing about family businesses as well is that they do have to really behave in a professional way, perhaps sometimes in even more of a professional way than than they might have thought, because there has to be a line, doesn't there, between business and personal?
Yes, yes, and it's very common to that limit between the informality of the family, as any family, as my family and your family.
Yeah.
We are informal. I mean, I don't have to send you an invite uh, to visit you at your house, and that informality, it's easily transferred to the formality of the business.
Yep.
That's the natural way of interact with your family. So that's, we have to start that, to think that when we are in the business, there is a formality that we have to follow,
Yep.
and that's a very important change of mentality.
Yes. You know, it's so interesting. I'm learning a lot from this discussion, and I think one of the interesting things is that it has to be very carefully thought through. I know this is something that you said at the beginning, but the minefield of potential pitfalls seem to be quite big. And what the best way around those seem to be this very thoughtful, very considered approach to the difference between family and personal and all of those other issues that we've been talking about. And I can see why family businesses really do need help from people like you, because you can't just go in there and just think that it's going to be okay, can you?
No, and as you can see, we haven't talked about the business. We haven't talked about the wealth. We have been only talking about relationships,
Yes, that's right. Yes,
and that's what the people usually call the soft side of the
yes,
business. And it's not that soft when you think about it. It's the hardest part, how to
yes,
live with your family. So yeah, that's our thing that you have to consider. So related with that, or we say on the top of that, we have to think about the succession process,
yes,
because every family business is a family business when you start to think about the next generation.
yeah,
So depending on, again, what's this shared dream? That is this shared dream including the next generation in the management of the business, or are we thinking that maybe we are going to only stay in the ownership and we are going to have a professional independent from the family management of the business? That's something that you have to define. It depends on the size of your business. Can you
mhm,
afford a professional management? And those are the things that you have to think about it. But once you have decided that, you need to understand that um, either one option or the other, you have to prepare the next generation, because it's not only preparing them to manage the business, you have to prepare them to be a responsible owner of what they are going to inherit. So that's another part of the business that you have to think about it. Who is going to be the next owner? And for the sake of the value of your business, you have to prepare the owners. We are not talking about managing the business. We are talking about being a responsible owner of what you are going to possess in that future.
Yeah, yeah. And it is true that a lot of family businesses do fail when they're passed down to the next generation, don't they?
Most of them, especially from the first to the second generation,
Mhm.
do. Yeah, there is uh, a statistic that says that most of the business, and when we say most of the business, about more than 70% are going to fail in that first transfer of the first to the second generation. And most of the reasons are not related with the business. In fact, there are no reasons related with the business. It's more related with the mentality of a system that is been working under the guide of one person, which is the founder,
Yes.
to change that mental model to a second generation when you are going to have a team deciding.
Ah,
So that's a real challenge, from one deciding to a team deciding. How do we start to create a new model on where you are not the only one who are going to decide, that we have to decide among other people? So that's the real challenge. That by the end of the day, what we're going to face in the next generation, from the first to the second generation. But once you have, if you do this transfer, this succession in a successful way, and you start to think about the second to the third generation, the possibilities to do it uh, are higher than the first to second, because you already have the model.
yes.
So that's not that difficult. It's part of the culture of the system, and then you have more possibilities to survive from a second to the third generation.
Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. So, in terms of those statistics, are there any particular types of businesses that you see succeed more often than others, for example?
And you mean by the nature of the industry? No,
Sectors or anything, or is it
no.
just completely irrelevant?
It's I mean, there are no differences in the same.
Okay.
I mean, it's all about ownership. Uh,
Yeah.
it's all about relationship.
Yeah.
In fact, when I work with the businesses, uh, the business issues are something important, but are not the main focus of the work. Yes, there's no particular industry in that, but I can mention you, for example, um, there is something happening for example, with the presence of women in the boards of a business.
Yep.
It's been increasing in the last, I would say, the last decade.
Mhm.
You can see more and more women in boards, and in every country I've been working with.
Mm.
um, and but it's easier to see them in some industry than others, and that's a personal perception. For example, there are things like, for I would say, logistic, transport, or agriculture. It's harder for a woman to be in a board, for example.
Mm.
I don't know exactly the reason,
Uh,
but it seems to be something like that.
oh,
But
that's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, but it's, you know, there are these small details related with the industry, but uh, something that you can say, okay, there's a industry that will be more need of family business advising. No, anyone.
So let's talk for a moment about family offices because, obviously there are a lot of family offices here in the UK.
Mhm.
So wealthy family business owners, they tend to set up family offices in order to manage investments and actually invest the profits of their businesses for the good of the family.
Mhm.
So do you work a lot with family offices, Guillermo, as well?
Yes, we also work as advising family offices.
Mm.
You can start saying that you can consider that a family office is a business because you have to have professional management, you have to have
Mhm.
a governance structure in order to deal with the decision making process. In that concept, you can say, okay, it's more or less the same. But by the end of the day, the issue with the family offices is that there is a legacy that you want to transmit to the next generation,
Yep.
and it's not the same uh, in those in those wealthy family to deal with the kind of values that you want to transfer that are not related directly with the operational work that you
Yep.
can do in a business than just managing investments.
Yep.
So most of those family business, the origin of the wealth come from a business, from an operational business.
Yep.
And somehow the history of the family business will lead you to a final creation of a family office
Yes.
need to recover that memory if you want to transfer the values for the next generation that will help you to keep that wealth in the family.
Ah, yeah.
So the big difference is that we have to dig deeper in the history of the family business that originated that wealth and make the emotional connection with the next generation to preserve that wealth. Because if you don't have that emotional connection, the first thing that you're going to do when you receive that ownership is to sell the business, because you're
Yes.
you're going to start to start to think about your own personal agenda
Yep.
more than the more than preserve that legacy for the next generations.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the huge difference that we see in a family office.
Yes. Oh, well, it's just so interesting. So, so when people come to you and they say, "Okay, I'm ready now to pass on my business to the next generation," do you usually find that they have already got successes in the business, or do you work with them to put together the plan? How do you find it works? Do they tend to be very open to external advice, or do they tend to be a bit resistant?
You will find both of the cases. There are families that are very open, and but usually you will find some resistance in the business in the family members, and that's normal because as a
Mm.
family system, um, every family has very conservative values on understanding how do they deal with the uh, interaction with the environment.
Yes.
What does it mean? That means that every family is a conservative system
Aha, yeah.
because the family is the last place on earth where you are going to find the security that you are looking for as a member of a family. So security is related with the low risk because you need to have to preserve and be very conservative. That's what family gives.
Yes.
So if you have a family, you have security of belongingness or anything that the family provides.
Yes.
Making a change is elevating the appetite of risk, and not
Mm.
everyone in the family has the same appetite. So
Yeah.
you will find some resistance. That's normal because the resistance is something that is telling you, hey, please don't go so fast. Remember that we are family. We need to be conservative. Let's think more about this or this. So you you are expect to see some resistance, and that's normal, and that's healthy for a family to have some resistance. And those are things that you need to understand how to deal with.
Yes, and as you said, by its very nature, a family is a conservative place because families culture and tradition is important in all families, right? That is what makes a family, isn't it? It's our culture, our tradition, and all the rest of it. So, I take that point that that is going to be translated inevitably into a business, and we humans don't like change. We're not necessarily always comfortable with it, but I can see why it would be even harder to embrace if it was, if you add in all those other elements really that come from a family. Yeah.
And
So
what is interesting is the challenge that a business need to be innovative, needs to have its own risk. I mean,
mm,
you are contrasting two worlds that have to collide with those values constantly.
yes. Well, exactly, because innovation is change, isn't it?
Exactly, and it's disruption. It's doing something
Yeah.
different. It's risky, and that goes against the family values.
Yeah, that's a very interesting that's another challenge, isn't it? Oh, it's really such an interesting conversation. I'm really beginning to understand how this is like a very sensitive ecosystem really, isn't it?
It
These
is.
family businesses.
It is.
Yeah, a bit like a coral reef. Yeah.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah. So tell us, Guillermo, what are people going to take away from your book? Is it just some of the stuff that we've talked about today and more?
Well, the objective when I wrote the book was to help families to set the rules to deal
Yeah.
with all of those issues that we've been talking about. So, because once you have the rules, you will have some kind of map of where to go, and when to know where you are going out of the road. So that's what a road is. It's a map to help you to go to reach that shared dream. So what you are going to find here is that in order to set the rules, first you have to improve the communication in your family. There's always room to improve the communication because you are going to talk about the future of every individual. And we need to find where is the common goal, where is this shared dream that will be the final destination of that road.
Mhm.
Once you define the shared dream, where do you want to go? What we have to do is to draw the road, and in drawing that road, you have to set the rules, what you can do and what you cannot do, if we want to go there, because we have to be aligned with this. So
Yeah.
that's the final goal: how to set the rules. So that's a sequence of steps that you have to follow to get the rules.
Amazing. Well, Guillermo, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you today. I have personally learnt so much. It's been a very, very thought-provoking and interesting conversation. So if somebody is listening in or watching and they say, well, wait a minute, I have a family business. All of these things that we've been talking about today really resonated with me. I better get in touch with Guillermo. What is the very best way for them to do that?
I think that the best way is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is
Okay.
it's a very active social media that I use. So just look for me there. I'll be there.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Guillermo. It has been really wonderful. And, I look forward to reading your book. And thank you very much again for talking to us.
And thank you again, Jen, for the invitation. Glad to be here.